into water before it's koshered, and then there's salt. All meat gets soaked for half an hour, then it's put into salt for an hour, and then it's washed off. And I've got all big bowls and chisels. That we don't have blood, but it's a Torah written law that we must not eat the blood of the animal. That's why the shochet kills it, to make sure all the blood gets drained off. Then when we get the meat, it's washed and salted to get rid of as much excess blood as we can. The whole thing, we mustn't eat the blood of the animal. If you eat the animal, but not the blood. My father was a kosher butcher before me, and I was studying for something else, and he asked me could I come and help him to sort of revitalise the business and change it if I could. And I wasn't a butcher, but I came in and I was actually studying economics at the time, but I changed things around and I helped him with working practices. I was able to drive, I was able to go to the market, so I was able to cut his hours, and I just changed the whole business around, and we went from completely retail to semi-retail and semi-wholesale. We started supplying restaurants, and I stayed. I wasn't supposed to stay, but I stayed. Well, our laws are based on dietary laws. We have hundreds of dietary laws: what we can eat, what we can't eat, how we can't mix milk, how we can't mix milk and meat together. So our fundamental basis, I think, the basis of Judaism is if your inside is good, your outside is good, and the whole basis is we're trying to be good people.
I've got these with broccoli and salt beef bar.
So,
I'm going to put them on the plate. Well, my mother always kept a kosher household. My mother came from a family, and this is my cleaning room, she puts everything where it doesn't belong. My mother came from, it was a religious family, it was sort of, they weren't, hyper-religious people, they were Orthodox. In fact, my mother's sister and her brother-in-law were the founders of the Stanmore Shul, which is one of the biggest shuls in Europe. And they were found, and there's a plaque on them, my Auntie Annie and Uncle Alec. That was Mummy's sister. But my grandmother, Grandma Yaker, not Grandma Liba, but Yaker, I adored her. And when she used to come and live with us, she would do all the cooking, because, after my father died, Mummy went out to work and had a little shop. And when Baba Yaker was with us, she did all, and of course, she was from, and on Shabbos, you couldn't, if she, in the winter, if she was with us, she wouldn't ask us to put coal on the fire. You just put it on without asking. And for soup, when we came back from shul, synagogue, she just moved, the gas would be on a very low light. She wouldn't make it any higher, she'd just push the saucepan over. Oh. Because on Shabbos you're not supposed to do anything, so it's very interesting. And in the kitchen there were cupboards. There was the meat, for meat utensils, plates, knives and forks, on the drawer. There was for milk, and there was something called parava, which was neither milk nor meat. And the dishes that were used for parava were, my mother used a lot of glass things, glass plates. In those days, Pyrex was quite fashionable, and it was sort of like a white Pyrex with little black and white stars on, with little black and gold stars on. Or she had her things that, the nice things that we used to use at Shabbat and everything, which was a dinner service, but it was only for meat or only for fish. You never use the same knives and forks or the same thing. This is stuff I don't use anymore. It'll all have to go.
my grandfather was a master baker, so he was always baking cakes and bread, and he was a delight to watch because he used to make his bread with a cigarette in his mouth, and it was really quite funny. I don't think it would be allowed nowadays, but he was a great character, and I remember there was always the smell of cooking and people eating constantly, sort of all day long. People didn't stop, so they went from lunch and then they had snacks and then tea and then snacks, and it's a wonder that I didn't grow up to be obese, but I think I went the other way. But yes, food is a central part, has always been, of our lives really. Of course it keeps us alive, but the kosher side of things was very important when I was little, and so I suppose I just keep remnants of that going. There was always lots of food around, and my father was very finicky about what my mother did, and he'd get really cross if she made too many potatoes. So there used to be lots of screaming matches about things that were left. So consequently, my mum used to eat everything, and she used to say, "Waste not, want not," and that was a famous expression.
So this is our milk side, and that means everything to the side is all milk, including the cupboards and including this island over here. And then our meat side is all the way to the right, and it's everything all the way around. So we have a meat stove and a meat oven, and we have separate milk and meat pads for washing, and everything gets kept separate. We have separate brushes and separate towels. Yeah, even separate dish strainers, so we keep everything separate. I grew up in America, where when you walk into any supermarket, there's always huge amounts of items that you can buy because they have a kosher label, OU, which stands for Orthodox Union. And when I got married 20 years ago and we came to England, it was a whole different setup where there were lists of things that were kosher, and you sort of had to know it or have done research about it. So for us, every time we go to a supermarket in England and we find in a regular supermarket kosher food, for us that is ecstasy, because it's almost like, oh, we can just shop in a regular place and we'll find kosher food. So when I lived in Richmond and we'd go to Waitrose and we'd find kosher meat and kosher cheese, that to us was very exciting. And when we'd find different companies that had taken on the kosher London Beth Din label, and we'd find the little label in the corner, that to us was always very exciting, because that meant that we could be a person living in a regular community with ordinary people and be able to keep kosher by shopping in regular shops. Every single festival that we have always surrounds food. So even the weekly Sabbath, there's always special foods that we have. If you turn around, you can see special challah bread that was made for the Sabbath, chicken soup, which was a traditional, food cooked in Eastern European countries where chicken was scarce, was made into a kosher delicacy. It's very vital that my children keep up the tradition, because Judaism is definitely seen as a chain that goes from generation to generation, and I wouldn't want my children to break that chain. But I know that being a Jew in contemporary times can be challenging, and that's why I try to make all of the festivals and all of the religious culture and practices very exciting for the children. I try never to make it feel like a burden, so that this will be something that they will carry on themselves. And I know that that works, because every single time that a new festival comes around, I can see the excitement in the children, and they always remember this time last year we had this type of food, this time last year we did this type of thing, this is the music we played when we were preparing for the festival, these are the peelers we used. And I think that all contributes to the children being excited, which will hopefully then enable them to carry on their tradition to their generation.